Hi, this is Michael Waitze, and welcome back to the Age of Tech podcast. Do you hear my voice change, by the way? Today, I'm joined by Vivian Ke Story, and feel free to laugh, the founder and CEO of Seoul, and we'll get to that name in a bit as well. How are you doing today, Vivian?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you, and very sorry for being late. I always like to apologize in public. It's rare, but it happens, and I'm very sorry about it, so thank you for your patience.
It's all right. There was obviously a miscommunication with our schedule. So you were not late. You just assumed that it was at a different time.
So
I'm totally cool with that.
Can you give our listeners a little bit of your background before we jump into the main part of the conversation for context?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Toronto, Canada. My family's from Seoul, South Korea, and I was brought up from a single mom with an extended family, and I grew up starting off in a high concentrated immigrant community. Okay. I would say that would be the nicest way of saying poor. And but it was a really great starting ground for me to learn really strong life values. From there, and through my family's hard work, we moved up social economically, and I started off in my adult years in finance, and I climbed myself up through the ranks, and I was in there for about 12, almost 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my first job was actually, I was so lucky, like I literally got my toe in the door as a temp, as like a receptionist.
Where?
At Moss Lawson, that got bought out by HSBC, and it was before being bought out by HSBC, it was a private brokerage firm.
Okay, where was it though? What city was it in?
In Toronto.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then from there, they said, well, you're going to make X number of dollars. I got hired like literally 3 days after, nice. Which was really amazing. And because I was such a keener, and they said, you could, if you get licensed to trade, then you're going to make X number of dollars. And so I just, and along that journey, I was able to move up.
Can I ask you this question? Because I have this issue too. When people meet me today, they always think that I've always been what I am right now. Do you know what I mean? So when people look at you, it's got to be hard for them to figure out or to determine just by meeting you the first time that you grew up in, let me just say, that immigrant community. Do you know what I mean? Because I grew up in poverty as well. And when people meet me today, they don't believe it when I tell them that, because like you fight and you claw and you try so hard. At least I did. I'm sure you did too, to get out. And when you do, you never forget, right? Because you know what that's like. But then when people meet you today, they see you and they just think, rich. Do you know what I mean? It's weird, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I definitely would say that it's interesting. Like one of the things I've been thinking about is not really feeling like I've never felt like I fit in anywhere, during like my childhood and as an adult. And then that's what actually helped me settle in Southeast Asia, because it's like this time I look Asian, so I fit in. So that's great, like, physically. But then, my values, my experiences, my life philosophy they're not aligned.
Right. It doesn't match.
Yeah, it doesn't match. So, that's where I'm trying to navigate and, finding my tribe. That takes time. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like some people will definitely judge me when they meet me and just assume that I've had a privileged life. I guess in a way, not financially was I privileged, but I've had opportunities. I had a strong family, and I've made great friends along the way and supporters.
Yeah, it's just like you said, trying to find that place where you fit in has always been something that I struggled with. Like I have almost the reverse in a way. I left the United States when I was 24. I lived in Asia for 30 years, so I'm not Asian.
Wow.
Right? But I'm not American either, really, am I? I don't know.
You're very open-minded, and I really appreciate your take on the world, really, from our past conversations.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, right? Because it's hard to explain, right? But you mentioned this. You said because physically, so visually, I'll use the word visually, you fit in a way that I definitely do not, right? Because I'm just a Caucasian male, which is it's the easiest thing in the world to be. But I stick out here in a way that's weird for me. But it also has opened up my mind to what it's like to be a visual minority. because you don't know what that feels like until you are one. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I remember living in North America. I remember a few times where people would be like, go back to your own country. And I'm like, but this is my country.
This is my country.
I was born and raised here. I am
just like you.
But they could get away with saying that because of this. Obviously, I'm a visible minority.
Right.
And I think that's what, there were certain trigger points where I felt like I want to go to Asia. I want to connect with my heritage. And yeah.
When you talk to your family, right, about, I'm going to leave Canada and I'm going to go and live in Thailand or live in Vietnam or live in Southeast Asia, were they easily supportive or were they nervous? Do you know what I mean?
Before relocating to Southeast Asia, I was actually living in New York.
Right.
There was some life choices that I was making, and it drew me to Southeast Asia and specifically Thailand at the time. And my family was just outraged. They could not believe that they worked so hard to leave Korea back in the 60s and 70s, where, it was a country that was still recovering from the war, and
right.
Their GDP was lower than, I think it was at one point like $26 US. And,
right.
And so they were shocked.
Yeah.
They were not initially supportive. But my mom came to visit
nice.
both Thailand and Vietnam, and she absolutely loved the countries and understood why I was living here. And she also noticed the change in me in terms of like my focus, finding a purpose, and just coming into my own.
Again, as a father, right? Mm-hmm. You love seeing this. So I have a 19-year-old daughter, I was telling you offline. And as you watch them progress and like kind of grow, it's just amazing to watch. And you cannot help but being proud. Like when you see them do things that are just spectacular, I just cannot help but being proud.
Yeah, when you see people around you evolve and grow and become more confident and just being comfortable in their own skin, it's a victory, really.
So you've now just provided the perfect segue. You know why, right?
Oh, okay.
You just said skin.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about Soul Story Seoul. So it's got two words of soul in it. One of them obviously is Korea.
Yes.
Right? What's the other soul? But then there's story in the middle, which sounds like your name.
Yes.
What's the story with that?
I was married at one point, and I was married to a Canadian who his surname was Story, and asked if I would take it when we got married. And of course, I was madly in love with him at the time, and I said, why not? And unfortunately, there were cracks in the relationship. And then I was soul searching while I was in Korea, and I was adjusting to Southeast Asia climate where I was no longer needing to take care of my skin during winter and learning how to adapt through a hot, humid, and rainy season. And this is something that was all foreign to me. We usually have like heat waves in New York or Toronto for like a week or two, and then, you carry on and then you embrace winter. And that's about 6 months of the year in Toronto. And the products that I was using were expensive, but not very effective. I've had health and skin problems over the years, and I was spending more time in Korea, just trying to figure out what my purpose was, soul searching, and I discovered skincare, Korean skincare. And then I want to introduce it to Southeast Asia as emerging economies. And I want to provide healthy skincare, products that I would use every day, morning and night. I first started off going to brands that were established in Korea and wanting to bring them into Southeast Asia. And initially, because of my experience in finance, I was quite confident and comfortable going to these big corporations and being like, well, I would like to bring these products in. And they're like, great. I'm like, but can you reformulate these products and, take out these certain ingredients that are chemicals that can be abrasive or viewed as unhealthy, and especially for women and hormones, related to hormones and skin sensitivity. And they just looked at me strangely, like, okay, well, how much are you going to export? And I was like, well, we'll start with like 5,000. And they're just like, no.
No, thank you.
And I got really, my personality is once I commit to something, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I locked myself in the guest room and I just started researching and digging. And I started off by researching like 342 companies, and then I narrowed it down to 50 and then 12. And now I know that there was an easier way of finding a good manufacturer and also a good lab where I could work with a cosmetic chemist and a dermatologist that has an extensive years of experience in the industry and the patience to work with a newbie like myself at the time.
How do you find that? Because I think about this all the time when I think about importing and then making my own products and stuff. Like, how do you find that manufacturing partner? And then how do you go to them? Like you said, you went to these big cosmetic companies and said, I want to export your thing to Southeast Asia. And they were like, yeah, but how much? And you're like, small first. Yeah. Isn't it the same with a manufacturer? Like, how did you do that?
Well, I think it was timing. Unfortunately, at the time, there was Mars that Korea experienced. They endured that.
Oh, okay.
And then the whole Korean-China trade issues that were happening. And so they were open-minded and they gave someone who was smaller scale a shot, an opportunity.
Awesome.
And it also helped that I was Korean Canadian. So they were, I guess, much more flexible with my inability to be following the Korean practices and then, get away with being bold, showing up
right.
and speaking to men and being like, hey there.
Do you speak Korean?
I do, but I don't speak on a business professional level. There's many levels of speaking Korean language. Someone told me the other day that I speak like a young child, and I spoke Korean until I was 17. My grandparents passed away around that time, and they raised us. And so I only knew how to speak to grandparents, to elderly people and adults. That's my my Korean skills. And I can read and write, but I will have to review the alphabet before I tackle it.
No, I get it. Look, we talked about this offline, right? But I speak Japanese as well. And sometimes I feel like I sound like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But the message still gets across. I do think people give you, not you, but I think people give you the benefit of the doubt if you just try.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes. I remember when I first moved to Thailand, I learned the language. I was trying my best. And of course, the tones, like I just could not pick it up. And
no idea.
I went to the meetings, and like the first meeting, like business meeting, I tried to speak Thai, and they just looked at me like, my gosh. But they were, nice. And they said, actually, I could speak English. We could speak English in this meeting. I was like, oh, all right then.
That's okay, because in Japan, that would never happen.
Oh, really?
Like, you had to struggle to understand what they were talking. It was good for me because it made me understand more, it made me learn more. It was super challenging. What is the impact of these products? In other words, when you're using, not you, but like when one's using these skincare products, right, feeling attractive or feeling healthy or just looking healthy and feeling confident. We talked about this offline as well, about being confident in your own skin. Like, how much does this really matter to people that buy these products?
To be really honest with you, I feel like it's so timely at this, period of time where the world is going through this pandemic with COVID-19. Yeah. Obviously, we're luckier in Thailand and Vietnam right now, but
for sure,
health and wellness is paramount. It's not just even our physical health, but our mental health and the state of mind that we're in. And our skin is the biggest organ of the human body. And so we need to take good care of it. As a woman, unfortunately, we are judged more than a man. And you can't mess with a woman's skin. And how you look and how you feel is important, and how you carry yourself on a day-to-day.
So I was going through the website, and there's no animal testing, right?
Yeah.
Why is that important to you, and why does it matter?
For me, I mean, I never even owned a pet, but I like life. I like.
It's a fair answer, right?
Yeah, I like life, and I feel like if I'm going to be using ingredients that are not going to be abrasive on human body, on the human skin, then why would it need to be tested on animals?
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not selling Botox. I'm not, like.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Yeah. So if I'm selling healthy, clean, and safe products, then animal testing is not necessary, because the sensitivity of these ingredients need to be safe and easier for humans to use. And so against animal testing is just a basic. I also want to make sure that we were going to be kind to the ocean. When I was looking into formulating sunscreen, it took me almost 2 years to formulate it because I wanted to make sure that this formulation was going to be inclusive, meaning that not only was it going to be suitable for women, but also for anyone that wants to use it in a hot, humid climate.
Right.
And there were certain chemicals that I want to eliminate in the formulation, and that posed a problem because you want to use healthy ingredients, but not have a very common chemical like oxybenzone. And it's been in the news in the last few years, and there are certain destinations around the world, including Hawaii, Key West, Florida, where they are banning sunscreens that have oxybenzone, which is the primary chemical that blocks harmful UV rays. Right now, 80% of the sunscreens that are available in the marketplace have oxybenzone, and Seoul Story Seoul sunscreen does not have it. And other sunscreens that are mindful about the human health and the environment do not contain oxybenzone.
But so how did you understand how to do this? In other words, you're not a chemist, right? Did you hire a bunch of chemists to do this and figure it out?
Lots of reading, lots of research. So whenever I start on a new product, I'll just start digging and I'll start dissecting the list of ingredients and I'll try different products that are available, popular products in the marketplace. And because I have combination skin as well as sensitive skin, extremely sensitive skin, I'm a really great guinea pig to work on.
So I want to understand, we talked a little bit before about why you decided to leave North America and come to Southeast Asia. It makes sense to me. I mean, I did the same thing for different reasons. But why Vietnam and why Ho Chi Minh? It's just an interesting place to live. In other words, your family background's not Vietnamese. That would make sense in a way, but it's not at all. So what is it about Ho Chi Minh that makes it a great place to build, run, start, grow a company when your manufacturing is in Korea?
I actually came to Ho Chi Minh City back in 2008. I went on a 1-month sabbatical, and I traveled in Southeast Asia. And basically, I chose Southeast Asia because it was back in February, and it was really cold. And Southeast Asia seemed like the right place. It's just, the winters are long and harsh, and I don't miss it. I mean, I love Christmas with winter, but that's about it for me. Yeah. I remember living in the East Coast, and people would be going on holidays, spending money to go to a cold climate to go skiing. And I just never saw the appeal of it. I'm gone.
Jack, I don't understand. Yeah. I just don't get it. I've been skiing, and I never understood why. I hated every second of it because, first of all, I don't want to do a sport where I have to put on so much gear that it feels inhuman. I'd rather go skiing. Go swimming. It makes more sense to me. But anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So I came to Southeast Asia traveling, and I came to Vietnam, and I remember just walking down the street in Ho Chi Minh City, and it took me actually a few days to really understand why I felt like I was at home. And I realized, these people here, they are working hard. They are hustling to improve the quality of their life. And that was my childhood. I grew up in a neighborhood where parents had 2 jobs, went to night school, and literally, the expression I strapped a cow on my back and walked in snow with bare feet.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah. And I mean, my mother would try to save $5 in a taxi ride and would walk 5 kilometers on a Sunday morning because there wasn't a bus service at the time she had to get to work.
I get it.
I saw these women, and they're on these bikes, and they are, it was just an incredible feeling. You get here, you feel the heartbeat, there is a pulse. And I also like the fact that many of them don't have this sense of entitlement. They work to earn. And what a wonderful feeling, that the sense of entitlement, I'm guilty of it. We all get caught up on it, but they don't have that luxury here.
At all, right?
Yeah. And it's just it feels so good. And they went through a war and they're recovering. My family went through the same thing.
Yeah.
And the limited resources. And why not bring something that is healthy, clean, and safe and, provide that?
I love it.
I feel like it's home. And I told my mother that. And I remember her being hesitant. And then when she came here a few times, she was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, you won't believe this, but my first time in Vietnam was 1991.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they stamped a piece of paper and they stapled it to my passport because Americans were not allowed in Vietnam back then. And then when I left, they just took it away.
Yes.
So there's no record of me ever being there, which I thought was kind of funny. And I will say this too, right? There's this impression, I guess, in the West that maybe in Vietnam or in the Philippines or in Thailand or whatever, that people are lazy, right? They're too sabai, yeah? And
yeah.
I go out on the street in Thailand, and every time that somebody puts up a new building, there are stalls out front. And people put those stalls up in the heat, and they make food, they sell clothes, they sell everything. And I'm thinking to myself, these are not lazy people. These are the hardest working people I've ever seen, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get that feeling.
They're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a lot of respect for those people who they're hustling and they're not giving up. I like that. They don't have that defeated mentality, which I really respect.
But don't you see that in yourself as well, in the sense that, how long have you been building Soul Story Seoul?
So I feel like in the last few years, I figured out the formula. And obviously that's always going to be fine-tuned
Sure.
with the changes. So the idea started in 2014. And in 2015, I launched my first set of products and I tested out the products in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt like it was oversaturated and there wasn't really much room for me to grow and to be recognized. And so I tested out Vietnam and there was an opportunity. There was a beauty subscription box that was available with 1,700 subscribers in Vietnam, and I put my products in it, and the feedback that I got was 82 to 83% positive.
Nice.
And so, I've been doing it for 5 years, and officially, I would say in a year and a half, really.
Do you feel like part of being successful is... And I know it's really simplistic, but I feel this myself, that part of being successful is just not giving up, in the sense that it's never easy. You're never where you want to be. Your product's never selling yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of competition, but the people that compete with you give up and they kind of clear the market for you. And this is the way I feel in what I do, right? And I can see it in other people, because there must have been plenty of times where you could have just given up and gone back and gotten another job, yeah?
Yeah. I just went through that during the lockdown with COVID, where I was questioning my life choices. And I was like, what did I really get myself into? I was like, when I made that decision to pursue Soul Story Seoul, I understood the risk that was involved, but I didn't really understand that a pandemic could actually happen.
Right. Yeah, tell me about it.
So I feel like that's one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur. You have to avoid falling into a rabbit hole, that's for sure. And being self-motivated, being self-aware, that's key. That's very important.
Very important. Do you feel like it's harder being, and I don't want to bring this up, but it just popped into my head, but do you feel like it's harder being an entrepreneur if you're a woman as opposed to being a man? Are there things that are unique to that experience that you've learned over time?
I feel like there are a lot of benefits of being a female entrepreneur, especially in the space I'm in. But also, there are some challenges, definitely.
Tell me.
One of them being, I'm trying to raise seed capital right now. And I've read some reports over the years, and I'll give you an example. So in 2018, there was about 130 billion invested through venture capital money, and only 2.2% was allocated to female founders in the US.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so you could just imagine me trying to raise capital.
But have you tried? In other words, have you gone out and spoken to venture capitalists or spoken to high net worth individuals and done that kind of stuff? Or
I'm just starting. Yeah, I'm
okay,
just starting.
go ahead.
Yeah. Would it be easier if I had a male founder, like a co-founder? Perhaps, but I'm not giving up. Uh, I just started, scratching the surface, so I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet. It's not just me from my personal experience, but I've heard it from other female founders. Over the years, I've I've witnessed, and I've heard stories of women who have great ideas, or they're, picking up momentum, and they're having a really challenging time trying to find capital.
I think we're at a point where there's going to be a secular change in this, right? And I agree with you. I think it's terrible. 2% is just like the wrong number. And I want to share something with you as well, if you let me.
Sure. Yes, of course.
Again, for my InsurTech podcast that I'm not advertising for it, but I just remember, and I actually searched for it while you were talking. I did a conversation with Julie Jung-Un Kim, so Korean founder and CEO of a company called Small Ticket, so a small ticket insurance company. And she said she went out to raise money when she was pregnant. And she said the worst response she got was from other women, which made her so mad. And you don't have to say anything about it, but it's just like, it's hard enough dealing with the men who are generally already biased, right? Because all they want to do is invest in other men because they invest in what makes them feel comfortable for whatever reason. And we can argue about that forever, but fair enough. But she said she went out and tried to raise money across the board. And some of the women that she tried to raise money from were like, well, you're pregnant, so maybe you're not so committed. And I just remember putting my head in my hands. She couldn't see it when we were doing this conversation and just thinking like, come on. Like, there's no next generation if women don't get pregnant. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm laughing because it's like, it's sad, and yet,
yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's sad. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why can I mention the Beehive?
Please. Yeah, definitely. So tell me what the Beehive is.
Yeah, so my friend, who's now a co-founder, Julie and I started the Beehive, and it was because we were both in selling products that are e-commerce platform online. And so we needed an offline, but we didn't want a retail store. And Julie approached me and asked if I wanted to do like some sort of collaboration, a marketing collaboration. And I said, okay. And we decided on a pop-up. And then through the years, I've been networking and relationship building with other fellow women business owners. And I asked, 3 other women, and we didn't know how it was going to turn out. And like literally like an hour before, we're like, I hope more than a few people show up.
Right. That's the big worry, right? It's like you have a party and nobody shows. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. And then, we ended up having like at least 70 people at Julie's studio. And we ended up, and then we had women that we've met over the years just approach us and be like, hey, we want to be a part of this. And we want to make sure we want to diversify. And I remember having these challenges where other fellow women would not give me a chance or make my situation difficult in the office, or trying to move up in my career, because I don't know why they didn't like me or why they felt threatened, but they weren't helpful. Right. Definitely not helpful. And I want to make sure that if I was in a position, I wanted to help other women.
Yeah, you always want to do that, right? In other words, why wouldn't you? You talk about finding a tribe, right?
Yes.
Don't you want to help the people in your tribe? Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and it's not just even women. It's like, people who are in a similar situation, taking that big leap of faith and going on their own and having no, regular stream of income. And putting their dream, making their dreams come true. And so through this lonely journey, we've created a connection of women and men as well through the Beehive. And so now we have these events every quarter. It's non-profit, meaning we don't make money off of it, but we organize them and we participate in them. But we also include other women in Vietnam, in Saigon, to participate.
And is that mostly a local Vietnamese women, or is there a mix of foreigners and Vietnamese as well?
It's a mix. Yeah.
That's
I try
cool.
to be fair and make it 50-50, but it all depends on timing and the availability. And we really want to grow it, but it's just the space and time because obviously we both, actually, everyone has their own business
Sure,
and
sure,
it's a
sure.
team effort. So Julie and I have done this, and she's actually become an advisor to Soul Story because we just work so well. And she's a dynamic human being, and it works as hard as I do, and it's just refreshing. And someone who has my back. Like I feel like she truly has my back, and we don't try to take advantage of each other. Like that certain type of people, like you give them an inch and they take like a foot.
Yeah.
She doesn't do that.
Right.
And I try not to do that either. And so it's just a really great dynamic.
It's a metaphor for life anyway, but I think it's really important in the entrepreneurship space to find people that you trust because, like I said, everyone has ideas, but executing those ideas is hard, and finding people that you can trust to help you execute them is even harder. And once you do find them, you want to make sure you keep them, right? Keep them close to you because they're hard to find.
Yeah. And I'm sure like, your career before getting into podcast at Morgan Stanley, like it must have been, yeah.
I like to say that it destroyed my soul. Like if you met the 10-year-old me and then met the 40-year-old me, you wouldn't have recognized me. And all I'm trying to do is get back to being like the 16-year-old that I was because that was a really nice guy. But the 40-year-old probably was a little bit of a dickhead, to be fair.
But it was a way to protect yourself and to basically survive.
Yeah, survival was the word I was going to use. Because if you didn't do that, and I could have been worse because most of the people around me ended up being way worse, right? But yeah, it's a bad environment. And I know people will listen to it and just think, oh, yeah, you're just bitter. But no, I did really well. So it wasn't that. It was a shitty environment.
Yeah, it really wears on you, like, especially if you're not a bad person. And then you have to be extremely, really tough. And like these characteristics that you don't really, are not natural for you. And then you have to, use them on a regular basis just to, get through it.
How do you do that though? Like, how do you power on? Where do you find that energy and that strength to power on? And maybe when you're done answering that, I'll let you go because we've been on for a while. But you know what I mean? Like, at some point, you got to be strong. Where does that come from?
It's a formula for me. Like, one would be meditation, just on a day to day. It ranges from a minimum of 10 minutes to 1 hour. And I think the basic reason would be purpose. Like I found purpose. And when you said you came out of Morgan Stanley, your soul was crushed. And I had to rebuild my purpose in life and this whole, journey of healing and getting into this whole health and wellness. I felt like, offering healthy skin care that was good for me and for others, I found purpose. And I feel like because I've always been pretty much like an underdog, like I've never, like, not that I'm a dog, but it's a...
I understand the point though.
Expression.
I would never call you a dog, but I understand the point.
I was like, oh, that's not the right word to use. But anyways.
No, it is. That's a real thing though. It doesn't mean a dog. It's a weird phrase when you think about it, but I understand.
Through my entire childhood and my young adult years, I've always felt like the underdog. And I think that, you need to carry on like with fortitude. Really, it works for me. And I try really hard not to feel sorry for myself. Like that's something that people trip over and then like never get back up. And I was like, nope, that's not going to happen to me. And so I give myself like this like scale where it's like, how bad was it? And I give myself an evening, worst case, a week, and I have to carry on like a good soldier. Yeah. Having a good attitude, having purpose, having a healthy state of mind. And part of having a healthy state of mind is making sure that you have people around you that are not going to be, that's basically going to rain in your parade.
Mm-hmm. Creating negative energy, I think, is actually harder than creating positive energy. I think positive energy is normal, at least in my world, right? And to do that, to create negative energy, to denigrate you or denigrate your dreams or to denigrate this entrepreneurship feeling that you have of building something from scratch, it takes energy, which means it may be on purpose. And that I have no time for.
Yeah, during COVID, I realized how important it is to actually, in the last few years, I've really understood how important it is to protect your energy and your well-being by the type of people you have around you, for sure. I mean, just even meeting you, like, I guess it was late last year, like I just, picked up on your energy and it's positive. So
that's very kind of you. And maybe we should end with that.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Is that okay? No, let me say this. I feel like we've had an incredible conversation, which is not surprising considering the conversations that we have offline. So this is not shocking to me, hopefully not shocking to you as well. I want to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for having me on and letting me, talk about my journey and my life and soul story. Soul.
You're a star.